Kia ora, nau mai haere mai. Welcome back to the webinar series on free digital tools for learning, featuring me, your host, Donald James from Te Papa. And in the background, we have my friend and colleague, Jess, who is minding the chat, being admin, being moderator. So if you have any questions, any concerns whatsoever, then just stick them in the chat and Jess will sort you out. Jess is hopefully going to stick a link to the slides in there for anyone who doesn't already have them. You will notice that this webinar is being recorded. So yes, it's being recorded, and yes, I will send out links to where the recorded videos are hosted so that you can watch them on demand and share them with any of your friends that you want to share them with. Watch them to your heart's content. That will probably happen Monday. But in the meantime, if you have access to the slides, there's loads of content in there to get you started, including links to, there's a bunch of little 2-minute intro videos that I did a couple of years ago on all of the tools featured in here that should be found under their respective places. So welcome everyone. Nau mai haere mai. This is the fourth and final webinar in the series. So we will skip ahead to where we're going and we will get started. The main thing is that all of these tools, there's no point using them if you don't have some reason to use them, some kind of context to use them in. And so I've been linking these tools to Conservation Week, which is happening just next week, and to Wiki to the Amari, which is happening the week after, and doing rough kind of brainstorming about how you can use these tools in concert with these contexts to do interesting and fun things. So today, and in this session, we are going to be talking about Tinkercad and Sketchfab. And I like to put these two together because it's really fun and you can make really cool things happen in both of them. And Tinkercad is a 3D design tool with a very simple user interface. It's been designed for kids to be able to get hands-on with digital design tools. And Sketchfab is an online community platform for sharing 3D designs and virtual reality artworks. So I went over that a little bit in the last session, but I'm going to show you a little bit more on Sketchfab in this session as well. So we're going to start with Tinkercad. If Tinkercad is totally brand new to you, then you don't need to worry about Sketchfab. But if you have had a little play maybe with Tinkercad before, or you just want to push yourself and see what you can make happen, then Sketchfab is your friend. Yeah, so for anyone who joined after I said it, Jess is my friend, also from Te Papa. She is minding chat, so if you have any questions, just throw them in chat and Jess will hopefully field them. If it's a question that I need to answer, then Jess can relay it to me, just so I don't get totally distracted reading all the chat questions myself. Excellent. So I'm going to click on this Tinkercad link here. That's going to open up Tinkercad as the website. And this is what it looks like. You'll see some of the designs that I have made before, things that I have created in the past, weird, wonderful things. And right now, I'm just going to create a new design. If you go to Tinkercad for yourself, it will give you the option to sign in or create a new account. If you go to sign in and just click sign in with Google, if you have a Google account, then that's the easiest way. And then your Google account is going to be linked to Tinkercad, so you don't have to remember any new passwords and things. We use Tinkercad with lots of different classes that come through as a chance to give them a space to have a creative response to things in the museum. And one of our most successful programs with Tinkercad is our Pacific Explorers program, which looks at Pacific navigation and the VUCA that Pacific peoples designed to migrate all over the Pacific and travel all over the Pacific. And then we give students, learners, the chance to work collaboratively in pairs on Tinkercad. And we highly recommend that when learners are using Tinkercad that they use a mouse. If you have a touchscreen device, you can manipulate things, but the interface is just a lot easier to use if you have a mouse. So if you've got a mouse near you just now, I highly recommend trying it with a mouse. And if you are figuring this out with learners, then use a mouse with them as well. So if you can get their dexterity working, then it will work even for junior primary kids, we find. So I'm going to create a new design just now, and it'll launch us into the workspace of Tinkercad. Here we are. And we just added this new really funky feature of adding notes to your design, which is great. So it means that you can kind of justify your design decisions as you make things. And they made a little house, and I'm going to make a little house. So I'm just going to start with the most basic thing possible. And thinking about Conservation Week, thinking about Te Wiki o Te Reo Māori, so thinking about different houses for people, houses for creatures that might live out in the wilderness. You could design a birdhouse, you could design a house for critters and creepy crawlies to look after the nature in your backyard. That's an idea. Or you could be inspired by Whare Nui, Whare Whakairo, and you could try and create your own whare inspired by the wonderful works that exist already out there. There's lots of really great images and information about Whare Nui that you can be inspired by. So I'm going to make the most basic house I can with this. I'm going to start with a box, and I'm going to put a roof on top. So on the right hand side, we have lots of basic shapes that you can drag across onto your work plane. Tinkercad is designed off this kind of geometric shape idea, so that to kind of resonate with this idea of building blocks and imagining that you have a big bucket full of wooden blocks or something. So I can scroll down and find a roof block. There we go. That's fantastic. And then all I need to do is find out a way to make this roof block go on top of that block. And at the moment, no matter where I move it and drag it around, it just won't go on top. So there's a trick to this. And the trick to this is to find the witch's hat, because everyone knows witches can fly. So if I can find the witch's hat, I can make my shape fly. I was just using the right click on my mouse. This is one of the reasons why using a mouse helps to change my view. And changing your view is very important in Tinkercad. A change of perspective is always good. So you can drag the work plane around using the right click on the mouse until I can see the witch's hat, which is there. And if I put my mouse on the witch's hat, it goes red. I can click on that and drag it up. And there we are. So I can drag it around, stick it wherever I want it, make it fly up and down. And then I can stick my roof on top of my house. And it might look like it's on top of it there, but I can see actually the shadow underneath. See, if I spin it around, it's now not in the right place. So if I was a perfectionist, I could use my arrow keys on my keyboard to nudge it until it's exactly in the right place, like that. And it's still a bit too high. It's still not quite in the right place. So what I could do is, if I click on my red box, talking about being a perfectionist, if I put my mouse over any of these squares, it'll actually give me the dimensions of that. This is one of the ways that Tinkercad has made itself really valuable for anyone working with maths or with measurement, because you can therefore do things very accurately. So I can see that my little box here is 20 millimeters by 20 millimeters, all the the measurements of this are in millimeters. And if I want to know the height of my box, I can see that one, I click on that, and you can see the height of my box is 20 millimeters there. So I can click on this and I can drag that around, and you'll notice that on the right hand side there that the distance from the work plane is a measurement. I can click in that box and you can actually type dimensions into things. So if I click 20, it snaps that to the same level as the box. So that's a way to be very exact. It's really nice. It's a little millimeter off, so I just nudge it with my arrow keys. So that gives you some very simple orientation around Tinkercad of how to kind of manipulate shapes and move things around. You can also rotate shapes. So maybe I want the roof of my house. I'm just scrolling in with the scroll wheel on my mouse. Maybe you want to rotate the roof, so actually it's that way around. So I can use these rotation arrows to be any way up. Maybe I want it to be a funky upside down type of roof. Back to front. So there's 3 rotation arrows for the 3 axes, X, Y, Z, and that gives you the ability to turn things around. So that would be a very simple house, but maybe I want to create a house that has space inside. So maybe I want to create something with a door inside. I'm just going to select all that by clicking and dragging over the top of it, and I'm just going to delete all that. I'm going to start again. I'm going to create something that's a bit bigger. So I'm going to drag this out to that size, and I am going to make some space inside this house using this hole block. In fact, every single shape can be a hole. So this cylinder could be a hole, that shape, or it can be a hole. It could be a solid or a hole, it doesn't really matter. And what I can do is I can combine holes and solids together. So I'm going to drag this out to be more or less the same kind of size. And in fact, I'm going to flip that upside down so I can view it from underneath. And I'm going to do that. That'll do. And now, if I click and drag over these 2 shapes, I've selected 2 shapes there. I've selected the solid shape that is red and the whole shape which is hiding underneath. I know I've selected 2 because over here it says shapes 2. And it's also given me the option to group those shapes together. And so now I have a hole inside my house, which means that I can do interesting things like create a doorway. So I'm going to create a doorway that has like a half moon rounded roof shape on top. So there's a more elegant way to do this. I'm going to start with a box, stick a rounded roof on top, and I know I just need to lift it up 20. There we go. Stick it on top. So I've got this kind of a shape. I want this entire shape to be one solid shape. So I'm going to click and drag to select both the shapes. Got them. Make this somewhat smaller. And rotate it around 90 degrees. Stick it into the walls here and turn it into a hole. And now if I click and drag over these 2 shapes, so I've got one shape that's a hole, one shape that's a solid, and group them together, I've made a doorway into my house, like that. And so by combining solid shapes and holes together, you can make complex shapes, and that way you can build up really interesting complex designs. Something that you can play with, I might want to have a, in fact, I've decided that I want to have a beautiful multicolored roof. That's what I want to do. So what I want to do is I want to change the colors. I'm going to make this an orange And then I'm going to duplicate this one and shift it along somewhat. And then if I click duplicate again, it's just going to keep on going. That's nice. Lovely. Great. So then I can click on this one, and I'm going to make that yellow, that one green, and that one blue, that one a dark blue, that one purple, and that one pink. Great. And now I'm going to group all these together so they are one thing. Fantastic. And you'll notice that it resets it all to one color because it's one shape. But I can make them multicolored, which is super fun. And so now I can have a really awesome, funky, fun house that has a beautiful multicolored roof. If I drag it out, there we go. Nope, it's not quite connected. Always change your perspective. Look at it from another view. There we go. There we go. So now I've got an awesome funky house with a multicolored roof. Beautiful. So that shows you the basics of how to navigate and interact with it. Jess, are there any specific questions that you feel like I should answer while we're looking at this before I send it into Sketchfab?
Not that I can think of. Is there anybody in chat that has any questions, anything they would like to know? Maybe a quick, I was going to say a quick talk over the notes feature, but if you want to talk about that in Sketchfab, that's probably all good.
Yeah, so there is definitely a lot more to explore. I highly recommend sticking with the basic shapes. There are more options here. There's a couple of other things that you can play with. Things like the Scribble is a really fun tool which allows you to draw literally anything. So I might draw a very untidy stick person, and maybe this is, and then click done, and maybe this is the person that lives in my wonderful funky house. And so you can use this to basically very quickly achieve something which might take a lot of time and energy and effort if you were going to carefully edit multiple solid shapes together, if that makes sense. So I can just create a little person, and that person can be whatever color I want them to be. So yeah.
Someone's asked if there's an easy way to search the shape library. Like, I'm assuming being able to search by like star, square, things like that.
Nah, you just have to scroll. There's no way to kind of type into any of this to find stuff. But there are many, many different things. There's a huge community. It's been around for a really long time. So there's a lot of available models to choose from, and there's a lot of very active people creating really interesting shape designs. If I choose something like a sphere even, so you'll notice you can choose how many steps there are. Lots of different shapes have options to edit things on these sliders, and so there's a whole lot of options to change with every single shape. So this was once a cube, now it is a strange, interesting shape. This was once a sphere, now it is a polygon of some description.
Another question that's come through is, can you make people and superimpose your own face on them, or so like import other 3D shapes from other places, or do you just have to use the ones that are there? And also maybe a quick talk about what the Lego brick and the pickaxe are.
Good idea. So you can import other shapes into Tinkercad. Tinkercad has, because it is based on very simple polygons and very simple shapes, if you pull in a 3D design from somewhere else, it can be quite heavy for Tinkercad to deal with. If you are looking to combine things like two-dimensional images and 3D designs, You can definitely check out Paint 3D if you have access to a Windows machine. That's pretty fun, but because it is doing kind of two jobs in one, it is a lot more complicated as an interface to interact with. So but it is cool for mashing things together and designing people and putting a picture of your own face on it. You can definitely do that in Paint 3D. But you can't do that you can't really do that in the same way with Tinkercad. So you can add text and type your own text, which is kind of cool. I can just type into this and say it's Donald's house. Oops. If I actually type, no, like it. There we go, Donald's house, and then that should appear as the text. Ooh. Don't know why it's not liking it. Technology, eh? Oh, there we go. Donald's house. Brilliant. So now I've got that word, and I can edit that word any way I like, turn it into a whole, change the color, rotate it. So that's another block to play with, which is really fun. You've got multiple different fonts. There's only 4 to choose from. So there's those little things to play with. I highly recommend just getting in amongst it and seeing what you can make. If you're going to point your learners to work to it, just encourage them to use the basic shapes. There are other ways that they can do it, other things that they can do, but other shapes to use. But don't worry about it, because you'll learn an awful lot more about how Tinkercad works by using the basic shapes. As for the Minecraft pickaxe and the Lego brick tool, they are quite interesting because that's just different ways of viewing your design. So if I click on the Minecraft block, this now views my design as if it was built in Minecraft. And I can change up here on the left-hand side the definition or the detail with which I create it. And it's really fun because it gives me the named blocks for which I would create it in. And so you can see what your design look like. And you could use this as a way to design something very rapidly, which is then built or created in Minecraft. Or you could have learners who are the architects, and then other learners who are the builders or manufacturers who are creating it in a Minecraft world, for instance. You can also view your design as a Lego model in a kind of similar way. And the nice thing about this is it gives it to you in layers that you build up. So if I do it like this, then it builds it for you. So this is 14 layers worth of Lego. There we go. And so you could use this as a way to design something which you then create instructions for about how to build it, for instance. How was that? Was there any other questions before we jump to the next part?
Just make sure you name it.
Good point, Jess. So up here, whenever you start a new project in Tinkercad, it always gives you a random name of nonsense. And so it's a good idea to name your designs. Donald's house. There we go. And so I am going to export from Tinkercad. And so I'm going to export it from here as a .obj, everything in the design. So this is an object file type. Wonderful. And you see, okay, there we go. And then I'm going to make a new tab and go to Sketchfab. This is the other website app we like to use. And I will just log in with Running Lab account. There we go. And now I can upload this. Oh, there we go. And I can upload these files. Make it free to download. That's great. And so Sketchfab is a free online platform for sharing 3D designs and virtual reality art. If you make your models free to download, then they don't count against your upload limit, which is great, which makes it a free to use service. Other than that, you have to pay for it if you want to start making, if you want to start having limits on who can see it and those kinds of things. So I'm going to go into the edit the 3D settings of my design, and the way that Tinkercad and Sketchfab interact is that designs from Tinkercad always end up on their side like this. So if I just nudge it and use the straighten model option here, then that will put it the right way around. And in Sketchfab, you have the ability to control lots of kind of display options. So for instance, the color of the house, I could decide that I actually want a slightly different color. And or a very different color. Maybe I want greenhouse, which is kind of cool. And I can increase the metalness, so the kind of the shininess of it. And I can increase the glossiness of it. And now I've got this really funky metallic looking house, which is cool. So there's options there's display options inside the settings of Sketchfab. There's processing that you can do. There's also annotations. So I might decide that this is person scale. So this is and I can write in, this is the scale of a human to my house, for instance. So I can use things just to demonstrate the information, or representative. They don't need to be a high level of detail in order to share the story of what it is that I'm trying to create. And maybe I have a reason why the roof is multicolored. Rainbow roof, because it is solar powered and collects rainwater, for instance. Good for the environment. My house. There we go. And so you can see, by using something like this, learners can justify their design decisions and communicate to you what their thinking actually is behind what it is that they're doing, which is pretty cool. You can also, for younger learners, maybe you can also record audio and attach audio to their design. So you could have them just give you a dialogue about it. And finally, you've also got this augmented reality, virtual reality option. So here I can change the scale. So I'm going to make my person a whole lot smaller. I need to bring up the floor level. There we go. And I'm going to put my person over here. Needs to be a little bit smaller. There we go. And so this is available also as an app. Sketchfab is available as an app. So it means that I can publish this now, save and publish. And I can copy that, and I can post that link in chat, and people can people can click on that link and go and visit my model if you like. And if you have the Sketchfab app, and in fact, if you try and open it up, it might even offer you the app. Then with the app, you can view that in augmented reality. So you can, through the app, there's like a little kind of kind of outline of a box option to view it, and you can click on that option and you can see it in augmented reality. So it can pop up in the real world right in front of you. And so in minutes, you can create something which is viewable anywhere in the world if you share it to them. So that is Sketchfab. And what I'm going to do is jump back to my slides because it's now 1:30, and I just want to quickly go over the extensions before we finish up. So the extensions of this test the limits of this kind of presentation as student works for yourself. This link, Student Works, takes you to a collection that was put together by a teacher from Kaikorai School down in Dunedin, and she got in touch with me. She's a year 2 teacher, and she wanted her year 2 kids to create something inspired by Pacific Waka that wasn't plastic bottle boats. And so I took her class around Te Papa on a virtual explorer, so a Zoom call through to her class, talked about Pacific Explorers, gave her class like a 10-minute introduction to Tinkercad, and then she managed to get all of her kids to create their own waka. And there's a whole collection there that you can view. So these are created by, six-year-olds, I guess. And this is their what they managed to achieve over, I think, a couple of sessions of Tinkercad, but still really, really excellent work. And she managed to get all of their designs up into Sketchfab, and she also managed to capture images with an iPad of the augmented reality waka and the kid next to their waka in the playground. So they had a really great time and created something pretty unique. Rarang Matihiko has a bunch of resources about getting you started with Tinkercad. And I put this app smashing thing here because this is an example of creating something in one app and then smashing it together with another app to see what you can create. And this idea of being able to export from one source and import into another is a really useful skill, and being able to understand the value of what you can get from different processes and different apps that are available out there. So Sketchfab is a really excellent place to produce your stuff and share it with the world. Tinkercad is a really great place to create stuff for yourself. You can share it from Tinkercad, but it is harder. It's much easier to share it through something like Sketchfab. So if you have any questions, it would be great to have them. Please feel free to post them in the chat, and I will do my best to answer them. My number one recommendation is to just jump into Tinkercad and Sketchfab and have a play. This webinar will be available again next week for you to watch on demand, so you can watch it back to your heart's content. But maybe over the weekend, jump onto Tinkercad, maybe with a friend or a child if you have one available to you, and see what you can come up with. Kids are great. They are generally very open with their curiosity and their creativity. So it's really nice to be inspired by them. Let's have a look.
Donald?
Yes.
Do you want to just quickly explain the difference between virtual reality and augmented reality, especially in terms of like what that might look like in a classroom and what might be needed? Because I think sometimes we think of virtual reality as needing a whole heap of different stuff, and sometimes we can get confused between the two.
Absolutely. The best way to think about it is that virtual reality is viewing a computer generated version of some kind of reality. It could be a computer game that you're viewing, or it could be a video that is viewed. There is no visible evidence of the real world in real time that is there with you. So it's some other world that you are perceiving. So that's a virtual reality. It's somewhere else that you're looking at. And augmented reality is overlaying some kind of computerized or digital virtual element onto the real world. So there, with the Sketchfab app, it's possible to view a digitally created model and view it through a phone screen to see an image kind of floating in the real world, as it were. Whereas in virtual reality, the real world would be disappeared and you would only be seeing the computerized virtual version. There are things called Google Cardboard viewers, which are very cheap. And with most smartphones, you can use them to view virtual reality stuff, including lots of 360 YouTube videos, which are really cool, and all kinds of fun, amazing things. So just at Te Papa, with just like a couple of smartphones, we do virtual reality sessions in our learning lab. But we have personally been favoring augmented reality because we've managed to use iPads and things like the Sketchfab app to see things in augmented reality. And the nice thing about that is that you can have 4 or 5 kids gathered around an iPad, all looking at a screen, looking at an object floating in the real world. And then so you have a more collaborative experience in that way. Whereas virtual reality is nearly always one person, one device, off in another world, and everyone's kind of looking at this person with a mask on their face, wondering what's happening.
Cool. That's it, I think.
Great. Just looking at Donald's house on my bed. Oh, brilliant. Fantastic. Someone's figured out how to do the augmented reality. Fantastic. Well done, Andrew. Great. Looking at Doll's house on my iPhone. Brilliant. Fantastic. Lovely. Thank you, everyone, for coming along. Please leave us some feedback. We would love to know how it was for you, anything that we can do to improve for the future. We'd love to do more things like this, and the more feedback we get, the easier it is. Jess has just put the feedback form link in the chat. So get to that. I'm going to do a karakia whakamutunga just to finish us off. And then I hope you all enjoy the rest of your Fridays and your weekends. And who knows, maybe we'll be in level 3 again soon. I don't know. I haven't checked the news. I've been doing this. All right. Karakia whakamutunga. Tēnei te Māori, ka heke iho ki te whenua e tāpoto nei. He rangi atua, he rangi tipua, he rangi tāwhito. I whiti ko te mātaranga. I tau ko te maramatanga. Tēnei ka heketia kia wātea. Haumie, huie, taehie. And mā te wā. See you next time, folks. Lovely to have you.